When the president threatens to send military close to the border, how seriously should we take that? Because a lot of what he says around law and order and around immigration really get his core base fired up, and he doesn't actually have to follow through. He just has to push these narratives. They like that. And on the policy front, which is wealthy people, corporate America, they don't want these things anyway.
Well, it's not just that so far he hasn't shown the follow through in a number of areas, especially when it comes to migration and immigration. He actually doesn't have the unilateral power to, for instance, declare that Mexico will actually pay for the wall at the southern border and have them pay, or to build this border wall. The holdup there doesn't seem to be the president's desire, but the congressional process. But I will say, as Peter was saying, this is an issue that, as much as is an actual tangible thing he would like done, is really something for the midterms. And our understanding is he has been told by his advisors that you just can't go out there and tout your achievements. You actually have to stir up your base and energize them sort of through grievance and paint the world as problem-addled, and that you're going to fix it, fire them up against an angry Democratic, liberal mob that's weak on borders. And so I think what we're seeing is a part of that as well.
Eddie, I want to play for you what Newt Gingrich said on Fox last night.
Sometimes politicians and their consultants and everybody does all this planning, and then history just picks things up and changes everything. I think two words are going to define the 2018 election in the next 3 weeks. One is Kavanaugh, and the other is caravan.
Kavanaugh and caravan. So what do Democrats do? Because one thing that the president's done artfully is spread lie after lie after lie, and it works. It works with his base. Right. And then you've got the corporate set, who I sit with all the time, who basically say, oh, I'm just not going to listen to what he says because those tax cuts doubled the amount of cash they have on the books. And when you talk to wealthy people in places like California and New York, where you think they're blue, and they're definitely blue at cocktail parties, those rich people are going, man, let me tell you about my tax rate. They love it.
Well, I think what Democrats have to do is speak to their constituencies, speak to real life circumstances of folk on the ground. We know that the majority of Americans aren't in the stock market. We know that their wages have flatlined, that you've seen modest growth, that they're trying to make ends meet. We know that the rental market is such that as the housing market collapsed and is barely eking back, that the rental market is so high that certain people can't find places to live. We know that everyday ordinary folks can't afford to send their kids to school. We know that healthcare costs are skyrocketing. We can just tell the story about what everyday ordinary working people are experiencing. And then you combine that with this fact. And this is the fact that when you talk about caravan, you're talking about white anxiety. You're talking about old white man angst. And so when they bring up the caravan, that's all we need to do is to bring up the pictures of children being separated from their families. That's all we need to do is bring up children in immigration court. That's all we need to do is to talk about how evil the policy is. And then when we say this, and check this out, Stephanie, when we say this to them, when we say that the tax cut has benefited only the top 0.1% and 1%, only the richest of the rich, while we're down here busting our behinds, white, black, green, purple, yellow, right? We can say, irrespective of Donald Trump, that Republican policies, at least these policies, aren't benefiting everyday ordinary people. They just need to tell the truth in the face of the lies.
Can the president continue, Charlie, to blame Democrats when the bill he backed in the House was opposed by more than 100 Republicans a few months ago? Now, what I'm giving you are facts, right, and I worry that they don't matter.
Yeah, facts have become rather irrelevant, haven't they?
I don't want to be cute about that.
No, I mean,
let's get serious.
yes. I mean, look, the president's strategy is very clear. We live in an age of negative partisanship. And as Ashley pointed out, they could be running on the economy. They could be running on a lot of things, but they've decided to run on the fear and the mobs and going after Democrats. But look, I think what Democrats have to do is, first of all, have a little bit of message discipline. Stop distracting from their message. Stop stepping on their message. Over the last several days, what have we had? Hillary Clinton talking about, that it wasn't an abuse of power. It was not an abuse.
That's an unforced error right there that no one needed.
We're talking about DNA as opposed to DNA tests, et cetera. We're talking about some overreach. So a little bit of message discipline. How about focusing on the overriding themes of this election? Cruelty and corruption. Yeah. The economic anxieties, yes, there's no question about all of that. But, we won't look at...
Okay. let's stick with that cruelty
Okay.
and corruption.
Right.
Because in the last 3 weeks, the new narrative, and I want you to answer this, Eddie, from Republicans will be cruelty and corruption. They're going to say, what about what happened to Brett Kavanaugh's wife and daughter? Corruption, why did this thing get leaked? Corruption, you've got guys like Bob Menendez running again. So for Democrats, don't they need to run on more than cruelty and corruption? Because people across the country, whether I believe that or not, will say, politics are dirty, they're all bad news.
Well, I think it's both and. Right? I think we need to put forward a positive agenda, an agenda that will address the circumstances of everyday working people across ethnic lines, right? And we need to talk about what we are confronting. And what we're confronting is cruelty. And so even if they bring up Kavanaugh, it's going to just simply embolden women, and particularly women of color, to come out. So even if they make that argument, it's going to deepen some divide.
But were those people on the blue already coming out? And in the last 3 weeks, has the red done something to bring new faces or more faces out?
No, I do think that is what's happening. And I think that the strategy that you're going to see play out on election night, which is that red America is going to get redder, blue America is going to get bluer. And in fact, this map, the day after the election, this blue-red map is going to be starker. You're going to see this drawn more clearly on the House races.
This is what matters most. The center, the reasonable center in this country being hollowed out.
Well, see, this is the thing. If you're going to look for growth on either side, the growth potential is actually on the blue side, would you say? Yeah. That Trump is not going to add anyone new.
See, I disagree with you
now,
there.
this is what... why?
He's not going to add anyone new who likes him personally.
Right.
But if the economy is doing better, if people can start businesses with less regulation, we're living in a short-term world where people aren't going to put a sign on their front yard that says they're voting for Trump, and they're certainly not saying it to a pollster or at a cocktail party, but they will quietly vote for him.
And that is that soft Trump voter. You know, you do have the tribal Trump voters, the cult of personality Trump voters, but also the transactional ones, the ones who held their nose in 2016, but now might be saying, I'm going to turn out and vote for it. Well, that's
about who we are. It speaks volumes. So we will. I know I'm going to. We will castigate the loud bigots. We will say these folks who are running around with MAGA hats are problematic. And it sounds as if the silent majority, the so-called forgotten Americans, those are the ones. It's not just simply the loud folk.
Okay,
but they're the exhausted majority.
Ashley, can you speak to this? Because the president is making this now all about him. And while there are lots of people out there who don't like him, I was just at a CEO conference where nobody liked him, but they were very pleased with his policies, and they will quietly vote for him, even if they didn't vote for him last time. Are you hearing this?
Well, it's sort of twofold. He absolutely is making it all about him, and part of that is a recognition that it's always kind of all about him, and so he might as well own it. Our understanding is that's what his political team are telling these Republican candidates, that if you want to win, you need to own this president and his policies because they're going to be attached to you, whether you like it or not. The question is, for the Republicans, they're hoping that Trump can move those sort of soft voters, those low propensity voters who may have only come out to vote for him in 2016 and certainly don't vote in off years, not just to show up in an off year, but to vote for someone who is not named Donald Trump and may not have some of that charm that his voters seem to like. And the flip side, of course, as you were mentioning, is the risk is he motivates Democrats. But one thing, and he has certainly done that, but one thing I have heard is that Democrats are motivated. And the question is, you know, where is their ceiling? Maybe he's just making them angrier, but the Democrats were already there. And is he sort of bringing out more Republicans than Democrats? And the answer is we're not quite going to know until Election Day.
Or if he's bringing out new voters, young voters, what exactly are they doing? We know that there's one thing President Trump did for this country. He got people engaged.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.